Hey guys, how's it going? It's Danconia and welcome back to the Overwatch Esports Roundup. So, a couple of days ago we looked at the results from Open Division 2020 Season 1 for Australia. Now we are going to do the same, but this time it'll be for the Pacific, the Southeast Asian region, where we get to see a wealth of talent coming out from the Southeast Asian region, from countries like Japan, Singapore, Thailand, etc. So, let's go through this then. Again, if I get any of the names wrong, I do apologise. I am British and I happen to get things wrong. So I apologise for that. But let's get through it then. So our participants were A-BttB, NNT Kingdom, UND, Team for Revenge, Sabagod Daisuke, Zenith, FES A-BttB, that's a great one to say throughout this video, Zero, I'm not sure how that's said, D81 Fortuna, Fearless Gaming, Divo Esports, Ares Gaming, V3 Diablo Death Touch, NNT Crescent, IU, Akihabara Encount, and an NGVEB. So, those are the participants of the Open Division Season 1 2024 Pacific region. Let's get through our bracket then, and in round 1 we saw A-BttB taking on Akihabara Encount. This was a 3-0 win for A-BttB, and they would be moving on to the quarterfinals, knocking Akihabara Encount down to the losers round 1. Then we had the Zero taking on D81 Fortuna. This was a 3-0 victory for Zero. They will move on to the quarterfinals, and D81 will go down to the losers bracket. Again, we normally see these fairly one-sided games early on in the playoffs. Then we had TFR taking on V3 Diablo Death Touch. This was a 3-0 win for TFR. TFR is Team for Revenge, I'm just abbreviating here. And they will move on to the quarterfinals with V3 going down to the losers bracket. Sabagod Daisuke would then take on Ares Gaming. Ares Gaming will get a 3-1 win over Sabagod Daisuke, who would drop down to the losers bracket. NNT Kingdom would then take on IU. NNT Kingdom would get a 3-0 win here and move on to the quarterfinals. FES A-BttB would then be taken on Fearless Gaming. This again would be a 3-0 win for Fearless Gaming, with them moving on. Then we had UND taking on NNT Crescent. This would be a 3-0 win for UND, with them moving on to the quarterfinals. And then we had Zenith taking on Divo Esports, and we had Zenith moving on with a 3-0 victory to the quarterfinals. So, losers bracket round 1 then, again, fairly one-sided as we see in these early stages. D81 Fortuna would take on Akihabara Encount. This would be where Akihabara drop out of the Open Division competition as they lose 3-0 to D81, and they would move on to losers bracket round 2. Then we had Sabagod Daisuke taking on V3 Diablo Death Touch. This would be a 3-0 win for Diablo Death Touch, with them moving on to the losers bracket round 2, and it would be the end of the road for Sabagod Daisuke. Then we had FES A-BttB taking on IU, and no offense, but I don't have to say that name anymore, which is actually really handy. They lose 3-1 to IU, with IU moving on to the losers bracket round 2. And then we had Divo Esports taking on NNT Crescent. NNT Crescent would drop out of Open Division here, with Divo Esports getting a 3-0 victory and moving on to the losers bracket round 2. So, quarterfinals of the winners bracket then, and we had A-BttB taking on Zero, where Zero would take a 3-0 victory over A-BttB and knock them down to the losers bracket. TFR would take on Ares Gaming. This would be a 3-1 win for TFR, with them moving on to the semi-finals and Ares Gaming dropping down to the losers bracket. NNT Kingdom would take on Fearless Gaming. This was actually the first really close game. It went to 5 maps, but NNT Kingdom get the 3-2 victory over Fearless Gaming, moving on to the semi-finals for them. And then we had UND taking on Zenith. This would be a 3-1 victory for UND, with Zenith dropping down to the losers bracket, and UND proceeding through the winners bracket. So, losers bracket round 2 then, and we had Zenith taking on D81 Fortuna. This was a very one-sided game, with Zenith getting a 3-0 victory over D81, knocking them out of Open Division. Then we had Fearless Gaming taking on V3 Diablo Death Touch. This, again, very one-sided, Fearless Gaming getting a 3-0 victory and moving on once more. Ares Gaming would get a 3-0 victory over IU, again, as you can see, very one-sided. Ares Gaming moving on to the losers bracket round 3. and they would be moving on alongside a-BttB, who would be taking on Divo Esports, and they would get a 3-1 victory in the losers bracket round 2, meaning they would get through to round 3. So, talking of round 3, we had Zenith taking on Fearless Gaming. Again, pretty one-sided, 3-0 for Zenith, with Fearless Gaming dropping out of Open Division here. And then we had a-BttB taking on Ares Gaming. This was the second very, very close game, with a-BttB getting a narrow 3-2 victory over Ares Gaming. They would drop out of Open Division, a-BttB would move on to the losers bracket round 4. So, as ever, back to the semi-finals and the winners bracket. So, Zero taking on TFR. Really close game. Really close game, but TFR get a 3-2 victory over Zero, with TFR moving on to the winners bracket final and Zero dropping down to the losers bracket round 4. Then we had NNT Kingdom taking on UND. Now we're back to basically the order of the day. Very one-sided match. 3-0 win for UND, with them moving on to the winners final to take on TFR. NNT Kingdom will be dropping down to the losers bracket. So, losers bracket round 4, very close game between Zenith and Zero. This was a 3-2 win for Zenith though, with Zenith moving on to the losers bracket semi-finals. But who would they face? Would it be a-BttB or NNT Kingdom? Well, this was the complete opposite of the other game in the losers bracket round 4, where a-BttB would be getting a 3-0 comprehensive victory over NNT Kingdom, and they will be dropping out of Open Division at this point, but it's not the end of the story for NNT Kingdom. We will come back to them in a minute. So, losers bracket semi-final was set up as Zenith versus a-BttB, and this is where a-BttB's Open Division journey would come to an end. They would lose 3-1 to Zenith, with Zenith moving on to the losers bracket final, a-BttB dropping out of Open Division here, but again, it's not the end of the story. So, winners bracket round final then, UND taking on TFR. This was a 3-1 win for UND. TFR had actually looked pretty good going through this, but both teams had dropped maps. UND do get the win here though, and they will proceed to the grand final. TFR, not out of it yet though, as they would drop down to the losers finals to take on Zenith, as we mentioned just now. This, again, similar scoreline to the 3-1 that UND inflicted on TFR. TFR inflicted the same scoreline on Zenith. 3-1 victory for TFR. Zenith comes third in this Open Division Season 1, but it would be a grand final between UND and TFR once more, but this time it's a best of 7 maps, as we know with these Open Division finals, and it goes all the way. And that's all we can ask from a final, right? We don't want to see a one-sided final like I think we did see in Australia. I think it was a 4-0 in the end. But UND do manage to squeeze out the narrow 4-3 victory over TFR, winning Open Division 2020 Season 1 for the Pacific region. They will definitely be going on to Contenders Trials alongside a lot of these other teams, as we will go through now. So, as I said with the Australian division, there is a big gap to fill, because normally these regions were fairly small competitions in Contenders last year and previous years, whereas the Contenders reformat now has expanded these regions to a lot more teams, giving a lot more people the opportunity to become better and pros at the game. Now, obviously this means that a lot of Open Division teams need to be promoted into Trials and Contenders to fill these spots, and that is what we are going to see here. So, UND, Team for Revenge, or TFR as we've been mentioning, Zenith and a-BttB are the 1, 2, 3 and 4 from this region. They will be getting the $450 US prize money and will be moving on to Contenders Trials. But it won't just be them. They will be joined by Zero, NNT Kingdom, Fearless Gaming and Ares Gaming in Contenders Trials for 2020 Season 1 as well. But that's not the end of the story. They will be joining the 3 other teams that came down from the seeding tournament in the Pacific, so that's Mega Esports, Global Esports and Xavier Esports. That means there is 1 spot to fill in Contenders Trials for 2020 Season 1 in the Pacific. That means whoever is deemed to have finished in 9th place in Open Division Pacific Season 1 2020 will also go through to the Trials as well. Now, if I was to make an assumption about this, I would assume that it would go on the amount of maps won versus amount lost. If it is, then this would say that it would be Divo Esports that would go through to the Trials, because they were the only ones to pick up a map in Losers Bracket Round 2. And it has to be out of one of the 4 that got knocked out in the Losers Bracket Round 2. So, they were the only ones to pick up a map. so it would be likely that it would be them going through to Contenders Trials. I was right about the Australian region when I said that 2 others would be going through, and those other 2 teams were in fact God Mode and Ming Young, which were the 2 that I suggested would go through. So I think we can be fairly confident it would be Divo Esports going through. Again, if anyone knows any different, do tell me, and I will highlight it in the comments. But that is it for the results for Open Division Season 1 2020 in the Pacific. We are very close to getting the results from Europe, Korea, South America and North America as well. So those are going to be some videos coming up along the way, and boy, I'm going to have to fit them in somewhere because there's also the Overwatch League roundups to do as well, so that'll be interesting. That'll probably be coming out over the course of next week. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you in the next video. See you then!